Hello, everyone. This is another in the 10-minute tip series of recorded programs for credit and collection pros. This one is titled How Not to Set Customer Credit Limits. My name is Michael Dennis. Let's jump in. How not to set customer credit limits. Well, recently I saw a nationwide poll here in the US about how credit pros go about setting credit limits, what tools they use to set credit limits for customers and applicants. According to the poll results, in order, the top 6 answers provided were: we base our credit limits on sales volume, we base it on payment performance, we base it on the number of years the customer or the applicant has been in business, we set credit limits by evaluating credit reports from credit reporting agencies, we do it by analyzing EBITDA, and/or we utilize the ALTMAN Z-score. My initial reaction, to be very candid, was, please tell me I read this wrong. In brief, I'm going to describe in this presentation what's wrong with each of these methods for setting customer credit limits. Let's start with the idea of basing the credit limit on the customer's sales volume. So first of all, that could mean two different things. It could mean, for example, that the credit limit is based on the top line sales number being reported on the customer's income statement. The second is that the credit limit is based on the amount the customer purchases from the creditor company, meaning its sales volume of purchases from that creditor. And from my perspective, both of these concepts are problematic. So let's take a look at the first one. The first one says we're going to base a credit limit on the income statement, and specifically on the line item net sales reported on the income statement. And then the question, rhetorically obviously, is what's magic about the income statement? What's magic about net sales? Why not something on the balance sheet? Why not something on the statement of cash flows? Why not consider all of the other facts and factors that would normally go into a comprehensive credit decision? The second is probably worse. It bases the credit limit on how much the customer is going to purchase. So that really isn't a credit limit. You're just saying, well, how much do they need? That's the credit limit we're going to give them. There doesn't seem to be any analysis, evaluation, assessment of risk in connection with setting a credit limit equal to the amount of credit that the customer requires. The second way that creditors reported that they evaluated and established credit limits was based on payment performance. Basing a credit limit on past payment performance means the decision maker has made a false assumption. What is that false assumption? That the past payment performance is a perfect predictor or even a good predictor of that customer's future payment performance. In reality, I think all of us recognize that the past is not necessarily or not universally a good predictor of future behavior. In other words, just because one of your customers has in the past paid you on time or close to on time doesn't mean they can or will continue to do so. Also, basing a credit limit on past payment performance ignores a variety of facts and factors that normally would be, and I would add, need to be evaluated as part of a comprehensive credit review of a customer or an applicant. The number of years in business. Well, it's true, or it's fair to say, that a company that manages to survive for the first 5 years in business has beaten some of the odds because there's a fairly high failure rate for companies in their first 5 years. But just because a customer, a company, has been in business for a certain number of years doesn't tell you as the decision maker much about the risk of extending credit to that customer. Basing a decision simply on how long the company has been in business, the age of the business, ignores almost all of the relevant facts and factors that you would normally use to make a comprehensive credit decision. Evaluating credit report information. From my perspective, this is the least problematic of the 6 ways identified that credit pros were going about evaluating customer risk and setting customer credit limits. Unfortunately, credit reports do not contain all of the information that credit pros typically use and consider when establishing credit limits. Like what? Well, Typically, bank references aren't included in a credit report. Trade references from the customer, not included in a credit report. Information from your industry credit group about this customer or this applicant company, not part of the credit report, obviously. Financial statements and financial ratio analysis. Well, almost never to the financial ratio analysis. Sometimes credit reports have financial statements. Often they're out of date. Sometimes they're truncated. Sometimes we don't see the balance sheet and the income statement and the statement of cash flows. One or more of those is missing. And the last bullet, whether your company has or can become a secured creditor by obtaining security or collateral or some other form of credit enhancement, clearly not information that's contained in the credit report. Basing credit limits on an analysis of earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. EBITDA, or the calculation of EBITDA, is one piece of information from one financial statement, specifically the income statement. Using EBITDA as the basis for setting credit limits ignores any information on the balance sheet, all the information on the statement of cash flows, and it also ignores other useful information that credit pros would typically consider, including, I would add, other information from the income statement. It ignores every piece of information or data that could be used to evaluate the risk of default or serious payment delinquency, with the exception of EBITDA. The ALTMAN Z-score. The ALTMAN Z-score is a calculation intended to evaluate the likelihood of bankruptcy in a publicly traded manufacturing company in the next 12 months. I'm honestly scratching my head here trying to figure out how the Z-score would be used to set a credit limit. I'm also puzzled, of course, since it's about a bankruptcy risk evaluation, how it's relevant to setting an appropriate credit limit. And if it is relevant, okay, but how specifically would a Z-score of, let's just say, 2.66, how would that be translated into an appropriate credit limit for an applicant or an existing customer? From my perspective, and in summary, the problem with all 6 of these approaches, methodologies perhaps, to set credit limits is that each of them ignores information that can, and I would add, needs to be considered when setting or updating a customer credit limit. My advice is pretty basic. Ignore shortcuts and formulas. Don't ignore information that is relevant to the credit decision-making process when setting or updating credit limits. In summary, make sure that your credit decision relating to credit limits is based on a comprehensive review of all of the available relevant information. That's it for today, except for thank you. I hope that you found the information to be interesting and useful. If you're interested in information about how to set credit limits, please consider requesting the entire on-demand program from my sponsor, the Wisconsin Credit Association. And please have a great day. Take care.